Hello, everyone. This is Rocket Lab Weekly, episode 85, I believe. Thank you for joining us as always. Vince is not available today, so we decided to keep it going in his absence. Don't want to miss a week. 85 weeks with no breaks is pretty awesome. So thank you guys, Scott and Matt, for being able to make it.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for setting it up, man. I know it's not easy. It takes a little bit extra time, but it's well appreciated. I know everybody in the community loves it. So,
yeah, hopefully, I think people, even more than the information provided during the weekly, I think people just enjoy like the banter, the community, just chatting about what's going on and stuff. But yeah, it's great to keep it going. So before we dive into Rocket Lab's news, how's your week been? Done any trades? How you guys feeling?
I have the boring answer. I didn't look at the market once this entire week.
That is probably the best way to do it, to be honest.
Honestly,
I've heard that saying before, where some broker checked who was the best performing people on their platform, and it turned out to be dead people because they just never touched their portfolio. So, wow, fool's gold with the donation, the super chat. Thanks so much, and hope you are enjoying Mexico. Hopefully I'm allowed to tell everyone you're down there soaking up the sun, I'd imagine.
Yeah, much appreciated. $100 super chat always goes a long way. I'll be using that to smoke a cigar later, so much appreciated, brother. I need to come visit you.
How about you, Matt? Look at your portfolio, make any trades?
Always a great day. All-time highs in the portfolio by a significant margin. I didn't waver. I bought the dip, as everyone knows, throughout the ups and downs of April. And as always, it's the 15th of the month. I get paid, and with that, money goes into the market as pretty much as accurate as the clock strikes midnight every night. So always buying more shares, mostly the normal weekly bi-monthly buys, Rocket Lab, Venture Global, Next Decade. What else is there that I normally buy? A little bit of Bitcoin as always as well. So things are going well in the Farley family office, as I like to start calling it these days. Trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, just been blessed. I do feel like we're gonna have a little bit of a pullback. I don't think we're gonna scream towards all-time highs in the market, but yeah, been very blessed as we've returned from some of the recent lows in April.
Yeah. And I guess we can point out, as Michelle says here, that it's your birthday. So happy birthday, and
much appreciated.
Glad you're taking a bit of time to spend with us. And
34 years. I started looking at burial plots this morning with all this wealth, trying to find the small little square they're going to put me in eventually. So no, that's a pretty morbid joke, but
okay. For myself, I guess I'll just share. I did somewhat impulsively, so I can't, say I'm strongly recommending this trade, but very quickly noticed premiums were quite high on Rocket Lab options and sold a few puts, which, if you're not familiar with options out there, basically means so this is short-term puts. By the end of next week, or Thursday, I believe, if Rocket Lab stock is below $24, I'll be forced to buy it for $24. And if it's above $24, then I get about $500. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it was a pretty impulsive move, but I'm okay with it. We'll see how it goes. I feel like there's a lot of positivity out there right now. And even during the week, because I executed the trade on about Tuesday, Rocket Lab stock did rise, so the value of that has gone down, and so doing well in that trade so far. And we have a message here from Miss Laffy, or Juliet, I guess. So there you go.
Thank you,
Matt.
Julie. Much appreciated. Love you. Thank you for the continued support.
Anyway, I'll let you guys know maybe next week or the week after how that trade went, if I ended up rolling it over or made a few bucks. But let's go ahead and see if I can figure out how to actually share a screen on this contraption. Okay, so let's do. Which one is it? This one, I believe. Yeah, here we go. And there you go, Matt. So nice to see you joining us, Dave, as always, bringing your knowledge. Okay, you guys can see this, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we're just starting off with, as I said, the stock, pretty basic. Pretty good week going from 21 to 24 and change. I guess off the back of, earnings and a few interviews that may have potentially moved the stock. You never know.
We can
Any
take all
thoughts?
the credit for that, right?
Yeah, we should check. Go back through all the interviews and see the next couple days how the stock's done that we've had. Could be pretty fun.
I think we made the joke, right? That we pretty much were able to get the last 4 or 5 quarters, except for the fourth quarter of 2024, and the stock kind of flattened lined for a little bit and retraced.
Yeah.
But that's a bad joke. I think it was more macroeconomic, and it was a little bit long in the tooth. I think everyone still is waiting for good news on Neutron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess we're lucky the launch, didn't result in a major crash, but maybe that's still to come. Moving on with the news, obviously we did have a launch. It was for IQPS, their third mission in a multi-launch contract. We'll cue the video here while I just give you guys the overview. So the mission was called the Sea God Seas and successfully launched on Electron from New Zealand on May 17th, carrying IQPS's SAR, synthetic aperture, and we do have audio there cutting in. Let's get the actual launch going. Yeah. So it was the third overall launch for IQPS and the second in a multi-launch contract to launch 8 missions for the company in 25 and 26. And they did announce the next mission for this customer is scheduled in less than a month's time. So net June 2025. Either of you guys watch the launch or live stream it?
I didn't get to see this at all, actually. No, I'm glad to see it went off without a hitch. To be honest, I completely forgot, and I saw my email this morning, so I was happy to see that there's another successful launch. I didn't catch that it was in June, but I did catch. I think it was Jacob that mentioned at the end of the stream. They said the next launch is coming in the next few days. So I'm not sure who that could be in the next few days, but it's always good to see. It seems like we're really ramping up for the, I guess, second half of Q2 here. So that's always good to see.
Yeah, it always seems to be a little lumpy,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's like the early in the quarter, it's a little slow and then it ramps up but
Mhm.
yeah, they do have several launches they need to get off by the end of the quarter to kind of hit that cadence they're looking for.
And you
Yeah,
said
for
that
sure.
they said the next one's in June already. IQPS, I guess number 4 that would be.
Yeah, no earlier than June 2025.
Sweet.
And they also said 4 more launches for that customer are scheduled this year, with the remaining 2 scheduled in 2026.
Okay.
Wait, but sorry, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, Matt. I want to hear what you have to say, so keep your thought. But
Yeah.
during the call, they mentioned, okay, so they mentioned that this is the first of 6 back-to-back, but that doesn't line up with I think it was 6 in 2024 and 2 in 2025. That would take us over. I was a little bit unclear. I wanted to ask Peter that, but it was kind of a low priority question. But
yeah,
so this is the first of 6.
This is
Like this is the second of the year, but it was described as the first of 6. Like this third one is called the first of
It
6.
says
I don't know
it's
if
the
that was
second in a multi-launch contract to launch 8, and there will be 4 more launches this year.
4 more
in that
after the one
contract.
we had this morning.
Yeah, I can probably just share with you guys the actual. Let me see if this will show. Yeah, so this is the text we are seeing. 4 more launches are scheduled this year, with remaining 2 for 2026. Pretty sure they're referring to this customer. There's no way there'd only be 4 launches throughout the rest of the year total. So
Okay, and I brought up the earnings call now. And it says, looking ahead, next week's mission, so the one today, for the multi-launch customer IQPS will be the first of 6 in a row that are flying back-to-back out of Launch Complex 1. So it kind of contradicts, but it also kind of doesn't. Like it almost sounds like there might be an additional one that slipped in. Am I able to share my screen for a quick second here?
Sure.
I'll bring
Not
something
usually
up.
running the show here, but if you
I know, me too.
Battle
I'm like,
Royale.
we'll figure it out.
do you have to request to share, or how
Yeah,
does
I
that...
think I did. It should be. You should see it now. So I'm just gonna.
Scott?
I want to
Oh,
share.
here we go.
Okay.
Oh, I've got to
It
remove
used to be a lot
something
simpler,
else
Dave.
from
Don't
this
take it.
page.
Don't take it to heart.
Aha.
It used to be way
Okay.
simpler.
Okay, so you guys can see, like, okay.
We're
So I'm gonna
seeing
bring
the
this up.
inception of Scott's screen going into oblivion.
Yeah. So okay, so you guys can see this chart, right?
Yeah, it's a stream within a. No, we see a
No,
stream
we
within a
see
stream
your
within a
stream
stream.
window.
Wait, you don't see the chart in front of the stream
No,
right
we're
now?
seeing your tab of StreamYard.
No, I feel like
Everyone is
Leonardo
seeing the
DiCaprio
magic
just has to
behind
show
the
up
scenes
and,
right now.
Yeah,
What the
you're seeing the trash talk I'm giving in the private chat, and
Oh man.
Well, why would it not show the entire? It's just showing just the Google tab, I suppose.
yeah, trash.
Let me
It's
try this one
tricky.
more time. Sorry, guys. This is worth it, I swear. Oh,
Okay.
entire. Okay, so there's a different option there. Try that one. That should be better.
Yeah, that does look like it.
Okay, so this is from January 2025. So this is earlier this year. It is a translated document. I used Google Translate for it, so it did, like, take a grain of salt as with anything I say. But this is essentially IQPS's outline for, I guess, the remainder of the year. So you can see here we had number 9, the small star satellite. That went off in March, so that lines up fine. We just had number 10. And if Peter's comments about 6 back-to-back throughout the year hold up, that lines up well with number 10 we had this morning. And then I guess we can assume number 11, Dave, you said was June. Number 12, I guess, coming July, which ends with this completion window. And then if we do have 6 throughout the year, that would be numbers 13, 14, 15, ending in November of 2025. But that also doesn't line up with kind of everything else. Like when the second batch of 4 was announced, there was going to be the 6 of those in 2024 with the final 2 in 2025. But if this is the first of 6, that already brings us to launch number 7 of 8. So it wouldn't line up with 2 being in 2025. Hopefully that all's making sense so far. But it's I don't know. I guess just a little unclear on what comes next. What's your guys' take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I definitely appreciate the granularity you brought. I've kind of gotten to the point with Electron now where it's hit the scale that I don't feel like I need to track all these individual launches so closely and see how many they're going to get off or whatever. Back when there was like 7 or 8 in a year, I would be like, okay, this launch has got to get off by this date or whatever, or there's going to be an issue. But nowadays I'm very like laid back about it. And if something gets pulled or whatever, and I don't track it as closely as you, which is why I appreciate you obviously coming on and sharing these charts and info.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I don't speak Spanish. Just kidding. I don't speak Japanese. So yeah, I wish I knew. Do you know when this document was from?
From January 2025.
Okay,
So
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
things can change. Yeah, we know the manifest can change, I guess. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you.
IQPS, though, by the way, the Japanese customers are just loving Electron. They do really well there. So
it's them, and is that Synspective? No.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Of course, it's a Japanese company, but today I think was the first time ever that they announced a Japanese time zone alongside the launch. Usually it's I think Eastern and Central, and then New Zealand time, and then UTC. But they
how far off is NZT from Japan time? Tokyo time, I assume, is what they call it.
Not too sure.
I'll have to look. I'm pretty bad with geography.
Okay.
All right, Dave, I'm going to pass the screen back to you.
Yeah, I'm going to take things back over, and we'll continue on with the updates. So, around the world in 60 days, we have the latest Varda mission successfully re-entering Earth orbit and coming back for a touchdown, I believe, in Australia. So, this craft did over 900 orbits. That's a ton of miles traveled, and their third successful re-entry mission with Varda. So, we're starting to get close to the end of that contract. Isn't that right, Scott?
I don't know. I don't know no more. The next one is either the fourth craft is either second half of this year or first half of next year. But Varda and Rocket Lab are referring to two different craft, both as Winnebago 4. So I don't know anymore.
It's certainly confusing. Yeah.
It confuses me too. Okay, I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
not alone. Yeah, it's kind of sad. I wish I don't know. I thought it was like a nice forming starting partnership, and I was hoping that there'd be a lot more. But I think Varda, understandably so, is trying to diversify a little bit from who launches it, and so yeah, I would hope that maybe when we get the Neutron, that maybe they can figure out a better opportunity, figure out a way, especially if they start doing a lot of these things at scale, right? Where you might need to redesign the satellite that kind of floats around, because if you're going to start mass producing things at 0G, you're going to need a bigger vessel. So hopefully we can keep that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Pioneer is starting to become a bit of a, lesser piece of the puzzle, I suppose, but it's still a very cool spacecraft. And then this time, obviously, they didn't have to wait ages up there in orbit for re-entry, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, next up, Rocket Lab got a new Electron launch contract from NASA. Always love to see the NASA logo on Electron. They will be launching an astrophysics science mission to study galaxy evolution. No earlier than Q1 of 2026. So it's only one launch, not a huge deal. Always like to see them launching NASA payloads, though, and to be trusted with that. I did read somewhere that this will be tracking a lot of hot gases out in the universe, something I think Chris Kemp may be familiar with. Anyway, any thoughts on this recent contract?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember, but I thought that this, while it was only one launch at the moment, I thought it had like a bigger budget associated with future opportunities, or am I wrong on that?
It is part of a NASA program, Pioneers program. So I don't know if there's other opportunities within this program.
What, this one was Vader, though, isn't it?
I thought it was part of
this
it.
is under Vader. Okay,
Yeah.
so Vader is you're right, Scott.
Yeah.
I'm so confused with all these webs. Hopefully Peter can keep, I know Peter can keep track of it. I'm not smart enough.
Yeah. Okay, so this is under that Vader IDIQ contract, which I think Neutron also recently got onboarded into.
Mm-hmm.
And nice to get that one from NASA as well. And here we have a disregard that. Okay, so what else do we have? It's a pretty light news week. I did just want to highlight a couple things. So we had some analyst updates following the earnings happen on the 12th and the 9th. You have a flood of them, obviously, Cantor Fitzgerald, TD Cowen, Stifel, Roth, and Needham. Mostly buys being reiterated here all the way through, although ironically, this buy is pretty much where the stock already is. So I always find that kind of funny. We do have a couple price target increases, one from 27 to 29 from Eric Rasmussen, and 24 to 29 from Andre. So the analysts seem to be feeling pretty good about the earnings, it seems, at least.
Mm-hmm.
You guys follow those analysts too closely, or not really? No,
kind of not at all, actually. I feel like it kind of like puts a how do you say, like influence on my charting or my valuation process. So I kind of avoid the mainstream analysts, if you will. But I mean, it's good to see they seem super bullish. They seem positive after the earnings call. It's always good to see.
I will say my tune on. To be frank, I'm kind of a Scot. I don't really pay attention, but for a long time, the reason why I didn't pay attention to them on this particularly was because they didn't see the potential value, or at least my thought. And I think they were kind of pricing the stock to potentially go under. But the last 12 months, they've been a little bit better about ensuring that what they actually put as a price target is slightly more reasonable. I could easily see a case where RKLB stays in the $20 range if for the next 6 months, if certain milestones aren't met and things of the like. So I get it where they're kind of coming from. But before, when they were kind of pricing it for bankruptcy, it was kind of like, really, it didn't really make a lot of sense. So
yeah. I guess for me, like, I definitely don't go off them in my decision making for a stock, but I pay attention to them in that I think they still move stock prices a little bit when an analyst comes out with like a, lowering their rating or raising their rating. So keep that in mind. I completely forgot SpongeBob, and thank you for mentioning it. We did have Jim Cramer mention Rocket Lab on his lightning round, and I didn't prepare that clip for us, unfortunately. But did either of you guys see it?
In passing, yeah.
I saw in passing.
Time to sell, guys.
Is it time to abandon ship?
I don't know. He seemed to kind of like sometimes he just kind of mentioned, like when you're tracking that many stocks, like how well are you going to know any of them? But I was actually kind of impressed. I think he mentioned something about like upcoming launch constraint, and I was like, okay, like maybe he does know a thing or two, but
maybe
he's definitely one of those analysts where I kind of take with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I think he has some, researchers who help him out with that kind of thing too. But yeah, I saw him on Lightning Round ages ago. I think the stock was still like $5. Obviously, that was a different macro environment, and inflation was more of a factor. There were other things that were factors. Money was tighter for funds, and he was saying, stay far away from anyone who's not profitable. So he definitely did not recommend them back then. I just thought it was a little ironic that now he's recommending, well, not recommending, but he's saying like they're more legitimate now that we're at like 25-ish. So.
And I get it. A lot of the risk has been removed, right? I mean, yes, they're still not profitable, but at least from a operating expense perspective and where we're headed towards, in terms of loss of EBITDA or shrinking towards zero and eventually crossing them into positive EBITDA, we're making good progress. And so you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully, within the first half of 2026, we'll be able to say, within 12 to 18 months, we'll be able to say, hey, we're EBITDA positive as a group, and we could actually start focusing on where to place that positive money. Do you stack a little bit of cash for future acquisitions, or do you keep reinvesting back into the business? Like, how do you continue to grow? I guess it's all remains to be seen. RKLB, in my opinion, has been one of the best executors of mergers and acquisitions that I've seen in quite some time. Normally, when you see companies buy other companies, it kind of fizzles out and it kind of just gets absorbed into the broader like blob of groups of companies, right? But RKLB has really been able to utilize them and leverage them to create a massive impact on revenue growth.
Yeah. And I think you're right about a lot of the risk being removed now at this point. Obviously there's still some risk around Neutron and launching, but yeah, they've made a lot of progress since then for sure. Scott, Francisco's asking about Aurora Tech raising $37 million. Do you know anything about that?
Not a lot, besides just the fact that it happened. I know that when they launched the last, I think there was 8 satellites on, what was that, February's? Or no, was that in February, Aurora Tech? That was earlier this year, right? March. It was the end of March. They had 8 satellites going up. In one of their press releases, they mentioned that they had plans for like another 100, I think. So it's not too surprising that we see this. It's good news that it's also Rocket Lab. It's ideal that it's Rocket Lab, I mean to say. Because that could obviously lead to quite a few more launches. But it has me wondering if, like we see it a number of times where they'll company will approach Rocket Lab and say, we have a concept, can you please launch it? And Rocket Lab does, but then they kind of pivot to like a transporter or like SpaceX kind of in general.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping that's not what happens with Aurora Tech, where they're like, okay, our satellites work, now let's launch them in bulk on a bigger rocket. I mean, maybe even the bigger rocket ends up being a Neutron. That'd be cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool to see, and it seems like a good relationship so far between the two, and hopefully it continues going forward.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't always happen, though. We do see, like,
Mhm,
Black Sky or even IQPS seem
mhm,
to be launching, the bulk of their satellites on Electron. So,
mhm. Yeah.
by the way, thank you, Call Me Curtis, for becoming a YouTube member. Much appreciated. And yeah, couldn't agree more with Dave that Rocket Lab does do an excellent job of integrating acquisitions into the whole. Better than most. And yeah, Redwire is also well known for that as well, doing the acquisition thing. Okay, so enough about the analysts. Now, there were a few interviews with Peter Beck this week. You guys may have seen, may not have. First one, Future of Space Innovation. Did either of you guys catch this one? Have any thoughts from it?
I watched this one, and there's another conference from, I think it was from April, and Markets with Madison's all back to back to back. So there's a bit of a blur, but
Mhm.
they're all really good, very informative, and yeah, just good overall. What do you guys' takeaways?
I didn't fully digest this one. I did listen to some of it, but I was distracted. I will say I had full attention on Madison's, and I thought it was really well done.
Mhm,
Um, some of the same answers that we kind of got, but she did ask differing questions as well. So really, really glad to see that we're able to kind of see the spectrum. I think one of the key things that I'm taking away from all of this, like won't escape my mind over the past couple hours when I, have been thinking about Rocket Lab Weekly and just in, reflecting over the week, is what they basically said in our interview, which is the most neutrons will actually be made in the short term, and then long term will actually be creating less neutrons, which I thought was pretty interesting. Because if you think about it, I think the ambition, which we haven't heard from it a little bit, but hopefully in an investor day soon or in a future interview we get around to it, is I think the ambition is to get to 20 or so reusabilities per main stage. And so if that's the case, if you're only having 40 or so launches, you might only really be going through 4 or 5 different neutrons in any given moment, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
you're not going to be using only 2, right? You're probably going to have a circulation, but it's like you're going to ramp up a bunch, and you're probably going to lose a few into the ocean. And yeah, but I was glad to hear from at least Maddie's that fingers crossed. We have a successful splashdown that's very controlled, that they're actually going to put return on investment, which is the barge. For those of you guys that have not been paying attention, need some context. The barge that they had bought, they're going to stick it potentially under as soon as launch 2, which I was like really excited to hear about. I was wondering if they were going to try to do it after 3 or 4 or 5. But to hear that if things all go well, they'll potentially do it on launch number 2. So excited to see where we get with that.
Mhm.
mhm,
That caught me off guard as well, and it makes a ton of sense when I think about it. But Peter mentioned, like, it's basically a reverse ramp, as you said, where they'll build a ton of first stages right away, and then they don't really need that much because they keep reusing them. So the highest manufacturing load is right at the start, and then they'll just be cranking out those second stages, which are obviously expended. Yeah, that was really interesting. Makes a ton of sense.
But the thing that
Um,
confuses me a little bit, though, is kind of going back to that Army contract of being able to use it specifically for like transporting goods and services across, the globe, basically. It's
yeah.
like, would you potentially actually need more barges in the future, right? If you're going to be launching these things from multiple different locations, or um, having the opportunity to go into Europe and launch from Europe as well. I'm not saying that Neutron will, but we'll
Hmm.
see where it goes in 10, 20 years. You might end up having to need more barges as well. So curious where that ends up.
Yeah, I kind of changed my thinking on that. So when they first announced that contract, I was like, "Oh, very cool. Neutron's gonna launch from Wallops, land on a barge off the coast of wherever, and the supplies will be there. But I think now what may actually be happening is they'll just like release capsules, almost like a Varda capsule, and then that will come down by parachute or something like that. That I don't know for sure if that's kind of how those contracts will work, but that is what I'm leaning towards now.
Yeah, I think as well.
Okay, so there was one other interview, obviously, Markets with Madison, always good. And I know they all kind of blended together, but yeah, any quick thoughts from that one, either of you guys?
Nothing in particular. Like it was a good interview overall. As far as what exactly stood out, drawing a blank at the moment.
The thing that I'm still sorry to kind of speed up my answer here, but the thing that I'm really just like trying to wrap my head around, and they get into this little bit of back and forth between Madison and Peter, not in a bad way. It's just Peter holding his cards close. Is really what the hell are we going to do with our constellation, right? And I'm like, I know it's obviously going to have lasers on it, potentially also have radio frequency, etc. But I'm just kind of sitting here being like, what is the exact MO, right? Is it going to be private? I think it's going to be more of like a private company VPN, right? Like how we have internet and have the ability to move data back and forth. I think it's going to be more of like a VPN sort of thing where, you know, you have a very concise, particular company that you're working with, whether that's the U.S. Department of Defense, Army, Google, you know, specifically company-owned constellations that they can use to transmit data back and forth at hopefully faster speeds, versus what Starlink and like AST and maybe Kuiper are trying to do, which is more like public, you know, usage, which is why the radio frequency might help a little bit more. It's more of like a larger cast upon the globe and makes it a little bit easier to transmit data across a larger area. So I don't know. I'm still trying to really wrap my head around what specifically we're trying to get after with our constellation. I'm confident it will do really well. And I think the thing that they got into the conversation with Madison specifically is that it seems like it's going to be the next generation of where satellites and communication are heading, which is lasers, rather than potentially radio frequency. But that again might make it more difficult from a capturing of those lasers standpoint on Earth.
Yeah, I think that the laser angle is interesting. I guess the only thing is I think it kind of it has to be like a 1-to-1, right? Because it's like an optical link, so it can't be like a one-to-many transmission. But I think there's a lot of potential there. So I did just want to thank Space Ghost. He recently just became a member to all of our channels, I believe. So much appreciated as well. Curtis saying Rocket Lab could be the internet backbone of space. I've heard a lot of talk about that being a interesting, you know, potential use case. So that could very well be. And Dave, talking about the laser communications in a similar vein. Anyway, since you bring that up quickly before we talk about our own interview, looks like this rocket, this neutron section now being strapped down, potentially being moved, maybe. Interesting stuff. I guess we'll see. Unless it's just like an inclement weather thing and they want to make sure it doesn't have any issues.
Interesting.
Okay. So then obviously there was our interview, which was pretty awesome.
The best of the three, yeah.
What's that?
The best of the three, yeah.
Of course, yeah. Thoughts, takeaways, and questions we wanted to ask but didn't get the chance. Let's start with initial takeaways first, and then we'll go into stuff we didn't get the chance to ask. I'll just start with Scott. Like what's your first thing that comes to mind there if I ask for a takeaway? Putting you on the spot.
As often, it's the reaction wheels. So so that 5 NMS wheel, it was just quietly put on Rocket Lab's website, and I was like, that's weird that it was just like there one day, right? So right away my brain went to like, oh, I bet they didn't like announce it like, hey, we got this new thing, because it was for in-house use. And Peter was just straight up like, nope, not for us, it's for a customer. So like right away I'm like, all right, so who's this customer? We're waiting for Peter Beck to slip up in another interview and like say like it's for Apple or Amazon or but yes, not for Rocket Lab, it seems. And it also has me wondering like the production capacity, like is that going to be built in Auckland, like sharing the production lines with the 12 NMS wheel, that very high capacity one, or would that be built in Toronto? Like would that cause tariff issues at this point? The more I'm thinking of it, I don't know. But that was one of my main takeaways. And then a bit of um I guess lack of clarity in terms of the 8 launches that were signed within the quarter. I was sure that 4 of those were haste, but it turns out that only 1 was, which is a little bit. Like, not that it's a bad thing, because the average selling price for the 4 outstanding was 9.5 million, and if only 1 of those is haste, it's just kind of a testament of like, yep, Electron's price just keeps going up and to the right, and so that's another good thing to see. And then
maybe I'll just pop in before you continue because I thought it was interesting with the reaction wheel too. And I guess higher level, it was just like a reminder that, this is also a space components company. And every time I think about them, I'm always like, okay, how does this relate to their constellation? How does this relate to what Rocket Lab's going to build in their own, grand vision? But they're still out there trying to make components better for customers and selling new customers and increasing those revenue streams as well. And just something not to forget about.
Those are the main 2 takeaways.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. I want to hear from you guys next.
I didn't want to cut you off if you weren't finished.
No, that was it. It was like we'll get to some other parts, but the main things were like the reaction wheels and the number of Electron launches. Yeah. Then there's a bunch of questions that I'm like kicking myself for not asking, but I'm sure.
Yeah, in retrospect, there was a couple that people had brought up, and I'm like, damn, that actually would have been a good question. I was just most happy with the humbleness of being involved in the conversation whatsoever, and then 2, them extending our conversation, by having an hour like that was just more than generous. And I know they have 4 of us, so they're able to easily knock out multiple interviews in one, and we're able to kind of communicate and everything like that. And I think that's phenomenal. But just the color that they're able to bring and really share that context across the entirety of the portfolio of opportunities that they have in front of them is just mind-boggling. The thing that I think I got out of most of it is just how well, as always, this organization is run. Like every time, I say this all the time, it's like every time I have a weary feeling or I'm uncertain about something, and now I'm fortunate to have this opportunity to ask somebody like Adam or Peter these questions, I immediately walk away feeling stronger with my conviction about how strong their management skills are, with not only the capital, but the ability to grow the business, the purpose of the organization, the capital management of the organization is just really well done. And the thing that I was kind of scratching my head off specifically was the ATM, the basically the getting of the 4 million shares, where they received $90 million, which is actually a pretty good thing, right? You're able to dilute by less than 1% and get $90 million. Not a bad deal, right? So in that respect, they answered it pretty much like, hey, we needed to make sure that people understood that we don't just have 500 million in our balance sheet. We also have the opportunity to have $400 million of additional stock that we can go to be able to make bigger acquisitions if necessary. And also the fact that they thought that it's still a very target-rich environment right now, which it's pretty interesting. I would love to be able to be a fly on the wall in some of the conversations that they're having about what components companies they think would be extremely bolt-on and the pros and cons, because I'm sure that they could buy X, but instead they're going to buy Y because of what some engineer says. And I would love to be in those rooms to kind of hear specifically what they're talking about and why they think it's pertinent to the broader vision of the company. And as people that not just are going to buy it to shelve something, that I don't think that's the Rocket Lab way, but to buy it to actually implement it into their stream, Minark being a prime example, then I'm really curious to see which ones they're going to go after next.
Yeah, Scott, I'm so glad you did ask that question about the offering, by the way. And as soon as you asked it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how was that not on my list of questions to ask?
That's all,
Uh,
Jacob. I wouldn't ask it either, but last minute he's like, this one. I'm like, yeah, duh, of course.
of
Like,
course, yeah.
great idea.
And it was a great answer too, and it made a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I will say I didn't know until pretty late that Adam was going to be on the call. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of the financially kind of stuff, which I'm sure Peter can answer too. But for whatever reason, when I'm talking to him, I gravitate to more technical stuff. Um, so I didn't prepare as much as I wished I had on the, financial evaluation side of things. But I think we got some good information there, especially on that question about the offering. Very bullish on what he said about haste. I mean, potentially seeing more haste launches in a given year than orbital launches. And we're talking, like what, 18-ish orbital launches in a year. So if like that could push us, past 30 in, short order. I think it's bullish on electron demand and just feeling good about Neutron's progress. And I get the sense that they're feeling pretty good about it too. Although, the management will always say it's going well until they announce a delay. But I feel like it is going well. So that
Mhm.
that was nice to see. Yeah, and the SDA, obviously, they did bring it up in the earnings call as well, but I'm very excited that they are going for the tracking layer and not just the transport layer, which is getting delayed. That I feel like would be, maybe $800 million plus if they land that 18 satellite contract to be one of the manufacturers of tracking layer. And for those out there not as familiar, tracking layer will actually like track, missiles that they are coming towards them and do that job where the transport layer performs all the communications. And that $500 million contract that Rocket Lab got previously from the SDA was for that transport layer. So excited about that too. What's a question you wished you had the time to ask or it would fit in better to the conversation, but didn't get to it?
The two that I'm seeing from the community is the number of flatelites per fairing and the number of Archimedes that have been produced or are in production currently. Those are the
Mhm.
two that I'm kind of kicking myself about. And then there's a couple others as well. I just have, I guess, just really two more that I wish I would have got to. But I just wanted to kind of follow up about, and I didn't go with this one because we were kind of running short on time, and I'm pretty sure it'll be addressed in a conference. It usually is, like over the next couple of weeks or whatever. But I was curious about neutron spend, like where we're at currently. And I'm always looking for that, like, are they still saying 300 to 350 million, or has that been bumped up? And like, what are we looking for long term? And then outside of that is the MDA recognition and delivery. It was
Mhm.
the Q4 print mentioned that there'd be 16 or 17 satellites, and there's some funny like phrasing with it where it's not clear if that means all within this year or total. But to make a long story short, not all of the MDA satellites are going to be launched by Q3, which is like, I thought those were going off like at the end of last year, like being delivered at least, I mean. And now it
Mhm.
seems like, only half of those probably will be delivered by Q3, delivered like to orbit by end of Q3, and then I guess the remainder of that in Q4. But I was kind of curious in terms of like um all of the revenue recognition seems to be claimed for all of the satellites. And now like what kind of happens? Are they still plugging away at those, or like are they, yeah, like why can't they be delivered? Or and kind of simultaneously, like same thing with Escapade, like where are those? Are they just like in a shed covered by a tarp? Like how much work like do they need to, is there upkeep on those? Like I really don't know. But yeah, those are kind of the main ones where we just didn't have time or kind of slipped the
Yeah.
mind.
I mean, I get the sense that the MDA sats are pretty much done.
Mhm. But then it's like, why
So
wouldn't they deliver it? Are they waiting for like a part? And it just, I don't know.
it could be,
Mhm.
supply chains can be a little bit of a mess right now, or maybe they're not ready to receive them or something. I guess you
Mhm.
never know. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that would have been a good question too. Um, Several community members had pointed out, I think Francisco pointed it out as well. He's probably in the chat, that it did appear there were some changes potentially to some of the Archimedes at the test stand, or at least one of the more recent Archimedes that had ribbing around that engine bell, and potentially a few other changes. So wanted to ask, has there been any serious or major upgrades to Archimedes? I didn't really get the chance there. It's always a little bit of a challenging format with four of us, and then someone's like, okay, maybe I'll move on to a space systems question. And I'm like, well, do I really want to drag us all back to talking about Archimedes and Neutron? But it would have been nice to hear, but still confident in their execution. And yeah, as you said, it'd be nice to know how many Archimedes have been made to this point, for sure. What else did I want to ask? What about you, Matt? Do you have any questions you didn't get?
I had a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think the one that I didn't get fully answered, which Pete understandably danced around this one, which was the success and how we're getting, and do we have multiple kind of being built? And he obviously noted, yes, there's multiple being built, neutrons meaning at this point. But he didn't really give an answer to the timing to when we think we'll see a full integration, knowing that we kind of seen that stage one qualification going well, the upper piece of it at least. When are we going to see a potentially full stage one? When's that going to happen? And then obviously once that happens, how quickly can we then move to a full integrated test, right? And see the full integration of everything kind of together. And then obviously a wet dress rehearsal after that, right? How quickly can that go? And then how long after that? So I didn't get the full answer to that I would have wanted, but understandably so. I think another one that I was pretty upset about that we didn't get an answer to, or we did get an answer to, but it wasn't the answer I wanted, was whether or not we'll get some sort of flatellite on Neutron 1, right? And it seemed like that was a pretty definite no. There might be something else. Obviously, they're going to test the orbital capability of the rocket in the stage 2, but did not seem like a flatellite would be on it, which unfortunately was some sort of theory that I had. And I know others also were like, yes, that seems like a good idea. And other people like, why not? You're already building it for the SDA, give it a try. So anyway, there's that. But I did have a philosophical question that if we had more time and it seemed right, I wanted to ask. And it's more of like a personal development question as well. So obviously he's been doing this now for almost 20 years and building this organization from his bootstraps, as we all like to say. And so my philosophical question was, as the organization has grown from inception in 2006, and then obviously its first launch in 2009, and then again, after they did the launch in 2009, they had the Electron in 2017. Preparing for Neutron now, what has been the foundation of success? Has it been a solid vision and a solid culture within the organization? And then how does that trickle down into measurable key performance indicators within the group? Or is it more along the lines of you have key performance indicators that you're always tracking all the time, and then the byproduct is that it meets the kind of culture and vision within the organization? And I feel like what I see, at least from Rocket Lab, is they have a beautiful culture and a beautiful vision for what they want to do in space. And then that trickles down into measurable key performance indicators that they don't live and die on, but the whole company is aligned to. But I feel like most companies do the opposite. They have key performance indicators that they live and die on. And, they make sure that everybody is measuring themselves to these sorts of standards. And at the end of the day, they forget the vision and culture of why they're even doing some of these things. And, you have different parts of the organization caring about certain KPIs, but not others. And so there's a whole soapbox of reasons why I want an answer to this question, but was very curious to see, how he's kind of developed and how he has seen the company develop, obviously over the last 19 years, and now developing their third rocket, right? I mean, they had the Electron, they had the pre-Electron, which was called the Asai. I forget.
The sounding rocket.
Yeah, the sounding rocket, and then they're obviously building the Neutron. So,
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have tried to figure out what the secret sauce is to like Rocket Lab And so kind of interesting to dive into that, because you listen to some of these interviews from people like, say, Tim Ellis at Relativity, or, Firefly people or others, and they all are saying very similar things to what Rocket Lab says, and they seem like really smart people, and I'm sure they are really smart people. And somehow Rocket Lab and SpaceX are the two that just keep executing and launching, and ULA too, I'll throw in there as well, and even Blue, because they took quite a while to get New Glenn off the ground. And so definitely interesting to dive into that more. I was also going to ask whether they were going to have the landing legs on that first Neutron, because if they're not landing on a barge, do they need the legs? But maybe they want to practice just deploying them and opening them up. Didn't get a chance to that one. I would say I would lean towards yes, they'd probably have the legs and try to like simulate where the barge is. Yeah. And then I had another point I was going to bring up, but I forgot. Anyway, Francisco did share a picture, which I will show you guys quickly back on the stage. So this is what we were talking about on the Neutron, the Archimedes looking a little different. You got these extra rings around that engine bell. Not too sure if there's that many. I mean, it's obviously very fuzzy and from a slightly different angle, maybe. But people were pointing out maybe potential other changes.
Looks
so I'm
cleaner
not too sure.
in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean we're kind of cut off a little the bottom on this one, but yeah. So that's what we were talking about. If anyone was interested there. Any other final thoughts from the interview? We're getting close to the hour-long mark. Oh, and by the way, guys, I do just want to say, because if we don't say it, it actually does make a big difference that we have a good amount of viewers here. Thank you for watching, and encourage you to check out and subscribe to all 3 channels. So we definitely appreciate hitting that subscribe and like button. And I know it feels silly to repeat it over and over in every video, but when you don't say it, the numbers are very visible. So
no, much appreciated for certain on the folks that come. I will say I'm very grateful for our YouTube community and X community. I feel like we're received very well. I made a grave mistake by posting the link on Reddit, and let's just say the people on Reddit were not so favorable of our interview, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
They were like,
they didn't like
yeah,
it?
they were like tearing it apart. It's actually pretty funny. And I was like, oh, figured you guys would be happy seeing an interview, but I guess not. So it's pretty interesting. I just thought it was more funny than anything. I'm not actually distraught by it. But there were a few people that were like, yeah, I'm really surprised by the negativity on this thread. But I think that they were just put back by the question of whether or not we're going to have some sort of celebration in Virginia with the HASTE launch, and why we asked that question. I thought it was well received. Those guys thought it was pretty funny. But overall,
no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, overall, I think
we're
very fortunate to have the folks that we do show up every week to support us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell you, like, there's certainly been people that reach out to me as well as Vince and other people, like, asking. So I think he felt like he wanted to, pass on that request from other people out
100%.
there in the community, and it wasn't all for him. Like, he probably wouldn't end up flying to Virginia anyway with his family situation. But
yeah,
I didn't see that thread. And, yeah, thank you, After 19 as well. Not sure which channel that was to, but yeah, I'm sure it's much appreciated.
The one that I did have a question, and I'm not smart enough to know, so I'm curious if you guys do, or if somebody in the chat, maybe Dave or call me Curtis, because I think I saw you say something, and I know Doug was kind of surprised by this, Dougie Dallas. The question that was asked pretty much by Madison about the reentry burn and how they're something around that they're not going to do a reentry burn or something of the like. And how they're just gonna try to, I don't know. I was just kind of confused by it, and I wondered if you guys had any insights on it.
Yeah, so that wasn't actually new information. We know that because of the way Neutron's designed, they don't feel they need to do an entry burn to slow them down as they hit Earth's atmosphere. Kind of like Electron doesn't do a re-entry burn, it just comes back in. So I believe Falcon 9 does, and it has to slow itself down before it hits that atmosphere to make sure everything goes okay. Neutron will only be doing a landing burn, which means it saves fuel, which means it can use more of that fuel on the way up, delivering more payload. So
Is it just
I think
because
that's
there's more drag, or is it just because I'm just trying to understand why?
I think it's partly because it's, wider and stubbier. So and also the materials. At least that's my understanding of it. Yeah. I thought it was nice to get a bit of color on Flatellite versus the Lightning platform and the benefits of Lightning going forward. I was thinking like, whoa, could Flatellite even be used on, say, some of these SDA contracts or something else? Is that just kind of superior? So sounds like, Lightning would be better for that kind of thing. And Flatellite has other applications that it would be better for.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah. I think at this point we're getting ready to wrap up. If anyone in the chat has any questions they'd like to ask before we go, I would say now's the time that we can talk about it. If you guys have any other topics you'd like to raise, now's the time. But we're getting close to that hour mark, so getting ready to wrap it up.
I just have a general request to the community. So I've been down a rabbit hole looking at the separation systems, and I'm curious about the pricing. So if you guys are familiar with the 4 separation systems that Rocket Lab offers, my pricing is way out of date, and I'm not even sure where to look for something more recent. So if you do know anything, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, don't think I can help you with that one.
Yeah, or even like I don't even know who makes a comparable that you could see the price on. I don't know. Just my current infatuation at the moment. So it's taking place of the reaction wheels for now.
You definitely dive deep on all these topics you look into. So
well, it was Curtis actually. It was like maybe a month ago. He pointed out that the entire history of the separation systems that were launched is available on Rocket Lab's website. So I've been kind of plotting that out and kind of trying to get an idea of just how much of the components part of the business is separation systems. So, yeah.
Okay. I'll just bring up a couple of these questions quickly that did come in. So Pashto96 asking if it's possible to fly Flatellite on other rockets. Adam said in a interview, yes, it would be possible. Peter kind of said it would be hard. So they were a little contradictory on that. I feel like it's possible, but it is more optimized for Neutron. How long till your next big interview? We have no idea.
Hopefully 3 months.
Yeah, maybe after next earnings. Maybe he's busy. You never know.
I was surprised we got one at all this quarter as well with all the milestones. But
yeah, I wasn't too sure. Tom saying thank you for the interview. He enjoyed it, which is nice to hear because apparently it was not enjoyed by many. Oh man, I feel like you're going to ruin my weekend with that stuff.
Anyway, we enjoyed it.
Any ideas on next potential acquisition? I've been saying I want to see Celsium Astro for ages, but I think they don't have a lot in the RF antennas and like phased array antennas, or they even talked about potentially bigger needle moving acquisitions, like maybe some kind of company that's already operating a service. So that would be interesting as opposed to a component manufacturer. Do you guys have any other ideas there?
Nah.
No. Yeah. Guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. Opinions on orbital manufacturing. I feel like that's pretty far out there.
Are they talking like what Varda or Redwire does, or do you mean like something bigger?
I think it's like building components and satellites in orbit, I would imagine. I think that kind of thing goes hand in hand with like asteroid mining and stuff like that, because the cost currently to get, materials up into orbit is a little high. So, but I think Jeff Bezos is big on that kind of thing, moving heavy industry to orbit. Once again, we have June saying happy birthday to Matt. Just want to call that one out. And Jacob Keaton asking if someone here wants to act as a liaison to the company about investor/launch party to see if they're interested. To be honest, I haven't had great success in communications, so Vince generally does better there for whatever reason. I don't know
if Vince is paying. This is a joke, by the way. I don't know if Vince is paying Muriel on the side, but he's the one that is able to get successful communications. So
yeah, I don't know. Obviously, this is not like attacking anyone, because I'm sure everyone's very busy and actually doing things, and I'm just some guy on the internet making videos asking this company things. But yeah, I've send an email. I don't always get an answer. Vince seems to get an answer. He has a secret sauce, I guess. The relationships.
yeah, this is good. I was excited to see, at least, but with kind of pertaining to this, that Adam kind of thought, well, maybe once we get an integrated one, we can have it on the pad and at least have some sort of like investor day or something. And I thought that was a good idea. Everybody, I always love investor days. I always take them, like, regardless if it's RKLB or any company. I'm actually kind of sad that Palantir hasn't done an investor day in a while, because I think that really helps people. Granted, they do put a lot of YouTube videos out specifically about specific topics that might be a little bit easier and more digestible, and isn't as disruptive as potentially an investor day. But I personally would love to have some sort of retail opportunity for folks to get a little bit more in depth with the actual workings of the company, because I think a lot of times people focus so much on the quarterly, and the things that they're doing today from a quarterly basis, as you guys well know, were put into play in 4 or 5 years ago. So it's almost like a check-in with how things are going. But in reality, the things that are important are how many signings do they have? Are the signings increasing? How are the future customers looking for Neutron? Those sorts of things. And those things won't be seen until 2027, 2028, 2029. So
yeah. I think the seeing the rocket assembled would be very cool. As Peter said, with the launch, there's so much that can get changed. The probability of scrubs is very high, weather issues. So to organize an event like that and have a launch not go off would be scary. But even just, standing around in front of the rocket, seeing some of that stuff, meeting people in person would be cool. Maybe that ends up happening. I don't know. I guess we'll it's TBD on that one. But it's nice to hear that Scott has decided to take the lead as the retail investor liaison.
Oh, that's Vince.
Okay, we'll let him know about that. I guess we'll wrap it up here. I guess the biggest takeaway for the weekend is that my Maple Leafs have successfully won last night and are still in the playoffs. So very excited about that. And it was a great interview, great week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks for the viewers as always, and hit those likes and subscribes if you can. Everyone, have a great weekend. See you next time.
thank you all.
You guys.
Thanks for setting it up, Dave.
Bye.